Today, video games have truly transcended the boundaries of creativity and artistry. There are many games that can safely be called technical excellence when it comes to their graphical accuracy. Because the adventure game genre includes many legendary games from various subgenres, I'll tell you about the most popular and best games that will undoubtedly captivate you in 2023. The characters, dialogue, and world make Grim Fandango one of the best adventure games. In the Mexican land of the dead, where everyone is a demon or a skeleton, the recently deceased must work off all the crimes they could have committed before embarking on a treacherous 4-year journey to reach the 9th underworld. It's an artfully realized world with film noir influences and a lot of crime and corruption. The game features some of the best characters ever written, including protagonist Manuel Calavera, who must try to save Mercedes Calamar, a woman he believes he has wronged. The car-obsessed and friendly demon Glottis would fit in the best Disney or Pixar movies, and Manny is one of the coolest and cutest playable characters in an adventure game. The often obtuse puzzles can slow down the pace, but simply exploring and interacting with this world makes up for these inconveniences and makes Grim Fandango one of the best games for PC. Rockstar Games has created many adventures about breaking the law, but what about a game where the players themselves are the law? The game takes place in Los Angeles in 1947. The player takes on the role of Cole Phelps, who works his way up from patrol cop to homicide detective and other divisions of the department. The open-world setting allows players to take on various cases off the street. The main focus of L.A. Noire is on case investigation and interrogation of witnesses and suspects. In addition, the story unfolds in such a way that Phelps realizes that there is more going on in the city than he thought. Unavowed is a modern point-and-click adventure inspired by the urban fantasy genre, as well as hits like The Secret of Monkey Island. You take on the role of a character who has been possessed by a demon and is now forced to deal with the chaos he has created. When you go on a pilgrimage to find out what exactly led to this obsession, you meet a cast of warlocks and magical creatures that exist in a strange pseudo-reality that is closely connected to the real world. The writing in Unavowed is impressive, as are its point-and-click puzzles. While some of them are dumb, they are typically based on logic and extremely rewarding for players to work through, one magical locale at a time. It's hard to find the right balance between difficulty and cleverness, but Unavowed sets the perfect tone for an enjoyable and brilliant adventure. This is not to mention the art of the game, which is great in every way. Wadjet Eye Games has made great strides in this genre, and Unavowed is no exception. Walking simulators have become a unique subgenre of adventure games, with many big hits coming out over the last decade. However, no walking simulator has been as original and unique as What Remains of Edith Finch. What Remains of Edith Finch, developed by Giant Sparrow, begins with Edith revisiting the old house she once lived in. The house looks really strange, but it gives the player an insight into each of the family members who are no longer alive due to strange circumstances. The player learns about each of these stories through creative storytelling mechanics. If single-player adventures aren't for you, don't worry. A Way Out ensures that those who prefer split-screen games still get to take part in the high-stakes campaigns that solo players often dive into. A Way Out is set in a 1970s prison. The player and his partner must work effectively together to plan a prison break. It's an inventive setup where players have to work intelligently with each other if they want to make any progress. At some point, one player will have to divert attention so that the other can pick up an item that will help them in their escape plan. By the end of the game, the two players who help protagonists Leo and Vincent go on the run will become as close as the characters they control, and maybe even shed a tear or two as the story nears its conclusion. For those who love old hardware, the magnetic hum and buzz of a CRT, the pleasant clicks of mechanical keyboards, the hot breath of a stranger standing right behind you in an empty house, Stories Untold is a must. It features 4 episodes of sci-fi horror that center your main interactions around a set of old hardware. In the first episode, you sit at a desk and play an old horror text adventure, but it soon becomes clear why you can see the room around you and how the text adventure ties into it. Each successive level has its own twist or two on the setting and old electronics, making Stories Untold one of the most unique and spooky adventure games out there. While many games take place in unrealistic environments, such as outer space or alternate reality, some games take us back to historical periods in the past. A Plague Tale: Innocence is set in the midst of the 100 Years' War between England and France. Taking on the role of 15-year-old Amicia de Rune, players must stealthily avoid enemies while Amicia and her sick brother Hugo try to escape from French soldiers and plague-infected rats. Released in 2019 on all major platforms, A Plague Tale: Innocence received overwhelmingly positive reviews and also won the Game Awards for Best Narrative in the same year. Released in 2022, A Plague Tale: Requiem continues the heartbreaking story of Amicia and Hugo and their hopes of survival against the Order. It's strange to call something an adventure game when everything happens in one place, but Return of the Obra Dinn takes players on a different kind of journey. The game revolves around an inspector who has been given the task of examining a ship that came to shore after it was previously lost at sea. The inspector's job is to examine the dead bodies on board, determine who they were on the ship's roster, and give them the official cause of death. Return of the Obra Dinn gives players a device that allows them to return to the moment each passenger died to help them make decisions. The Batman Arkham series is considered one of the best superhero games because it managed to bring together many iconic characters from Batman's history. As a result, we got a new approach to the Bruce Wayne story, where there was no unnecessary attempt to give the Caped Crusader a new origin tale. Batman Arkham City has a dynamic focus on hand-to-hand combat and a host of classic Batman villains. The protagonist sincerely justifies the name of Gotham's greatest detective and hides in the shadow of an impressive super prison. Arkham City not only features superbly realized graphics, but also excellent voice acting, especially thanks to Mark Hamill, who once again brought the Joker and all of his instability to life. Have fun, Batsy. Life is Strange has been one of the biggest surprises of the last few years. It's a Telltale-style episodic game that stands apart, with a clever gimmick backed by a huge heart. This is the story of a nervous girl who discovers that she has the ability to rewind time, right on the brink of a disaster that is about to hit her city. However, the drama actually comes from her relationships, from the really difficult choices she has to make, and from a clumsily written but still effective coming-of-age story at its core. You take on the role of Talion, the captain of Gondor, who seeks to avenge the death of his family. Shadow of Mordor received huge praise, especially for the Nemesis system. This game mechanic focused on keeping track of the Uruks you encountered throughout the game. Those who killed you will be promoted, and you can hunt them down for revenge, as well as weaken Soren's forces in the process. But the enemies that kill you get stronger themselves, so the Nemesis system will essentially act as an evolving feature in the game. Although this feature was only used in Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, many players insisted on adapting this mechanic for other games. Telltale Incorporated took classic fairy tale characters, reimagined them in a hidden 1980s New York City, and then threw them all into a player-led murder investigation. In the role of a reformed big bad wolf, you will lead the search for the killer, like the grumpy detective seen on the TV show of the early 2000s. Only in this case, the suspects and helpers are all familiar fairy tale residents. It's up to you to unravel the mystery of the murders taking place in Fabeltown, and soon the walls of this strange community will begin to crumble. The Wolf Among Us is an oddity you won't soon forget, so go to Fabeltown and revel in the strangeness of what's going on. Rockstar Games began developing the next game in the series right after the resounding success of Red Dead Redemption. After 8 years of development, Red Dead Redemption 2 was launched, and the game was immediately praised. Despite the number 2 in the title, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a prequel to the events of its predecessor. The game tells us the story of Arthur Morgan, a longtime member of the Van der Linde gang. You will eventually run into John Marston, the protagonist of Red Dead Redemption. The game features a stunning open world with tons of activities to make your dreams of wandering the Wild West come true. This game offers us the standard linear experience found in most single-player games and is more critically acclaimed than Marvel's Avengers. Controlling Star-Lord, the Guardians of the Galaxy investigate a mysterious cult calling itself the Universal Church of Truth. Their leader, the Grand Unifier Raker, tries to justify his motives, but in reality, he just wants to gain complete dominance. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is an action-packed adventure that will take you to many interesting locations and meet many iconic characters. The Last of Us combines a poignant human history, a classic tragedy, and a terrifying test of survival. The story of Joel and Ellie and their journey through an abandoned America is one of the most touching moments in the history of video games, and certainly one of the greatest adventures. Although they are not looking for treasure, but a life away from the infected, Joel and Ellie are no less adventurous than other famous Naughty Dog heroes like Nathan Drake, consisting of a gameplay where you frequently count bullets, hide from the notorious clickers, and roam the ruins of former American states. The Last of Us is an incredibly well-developed and structured project. Just don't be afraid to cry from time to time. This is my list of the best adventure games of all time. If you have something to add, feel free to leave any comments here. If you liked this video, share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel.